Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. So today is a follow-up on my video a couple of days ago about MAiD in Canada and what I'm seeing as a really slippery slope that we're on. I wanted to do a little bit more research into where things are, specifically examining the expansion of MAiD in 2027 to people presenting with a form of mental illness, and the growing discussion around MAiD being offered to what is defined as mature minors, essentially children, people under the age of 18. And there's already been a joint parliamentary committee in Canada, which is suggesting that it would only be right and fair to offer MAiD to children, those under the age of 18, who still cannot buy tobacco products, alcohol, vote, to allow them to make the decision to end their lives based upon the concept that they can already make a decision to refuse certain medical interventions. Now, as I mentioned in that earlier video, I'm not making a judgment or suggesting that MAiD should not be available. The context in which this program was launched in Canada was, there are a few significant cases where people challenged the courts to say that they should be allowed to make a decision to end their lives. And so when MAiD became accepted, or when it passed into law in Canada about a decade ago, the idea was that it should be available to people suffering from an incurable disease or whose quality of life because of their medical condition was basically non-existent. They were suffering extreme pain. I'm not suggesting that I've seen firsthand what it means to suffer a devastating illness and disease, and what that process to passing is like. And I would never suggest for 1 second or think that my opinion should matter in those cases. That is solely a decision that should be made by the person. My concern is that there's a potential expansion of MAiD, and there won't be the safeguards in place. And in fact, we already do not have the requisite and adequate safeguards in place now to protect vulnerable people whose conditions are beyond the conditions that the policy was designed to address, that they have conditions beyond that, and they're accessing MAiD as well. So the safeguards in place now do not appear to be working. How will they work once the program is widened to allow it to be accessed by the mentally ill or children? Now, in 2020, I'm trying to think when this was, 2023 or 2024? 2024, the Associated Press got its hands on the report of the coroner of Ontario's report examining MAiD and whether or not that euthanasia deaths were within the context of what the program was supposed to be. And they concluded that despite all of the safeguards, the guardrails, people were slipping through. People were presenting with conditions or reasons for wanting MAiD that should have made them completely ineligible. Now, they gave a number of examples. I'll link the reports below. So there were a number of examples. One was the case of Mr. A, who was an unemployed man in his 40s with bowel disease and a history of substance abuse and mental illness. He was described as socially vulnerable and isolated, and some of the committee members on the coroner's committee who examined this were alarmed that a psychiatrist suggested euthanasia during the initial health assessment. It takes a bit of a turn. Mr. A was eventually picked up and driven to the location where he was killed by the health professional who euthanized him. You have to start questioning what degree of pressure was applied here. I don't want to suggest that he was coerced into dying, but when the medical professional is who's pushing this person through, or who's working with this person through the process, who clearly has other issues, then shows up at Mr. A's house to take him to the location and administer the injections, you have to, at the very least, question the professionalism, ethics, morality of this particular case. Another example, Miss B, and all of these cases in the coroner's report have been anonymized. Miss B, a woman in her 50s suffering from multiple chemical sensitivity syndrome with a history of mental illness, including suicidality and post-traumatic stress disorder. She was socially isolated and asked to die largely because she could not get proper housing. If somebody is presenting to a medical professional and saying, I want to die because I cannot get proper housing, immediately, this is beyond what MAiD was supposed to be doing. This was not a person suffering from an incurable disease. And in both of these cases, we're seeing mental illness as a main driving factor between these two people seeking MAiD. We're not supposed to be euthanizing people with mental illness, but it's happening. So already now we're seeing that the safeguards are not protecting people. People are slipping through the system. What happens when mentally ill people who might benefit from alternative therapies, who might benefit from therapy if they can even access it under the current healthcare system we have? It's like we're just completely eliminating all other options here. That MAiD is being offered, or MAiD will be offered as a first choice option. In both of these cases, surely there could have been other things that could have been addressed, that other things that could have been looked at. What my huge concern is that the safeguards don't appear to be working now. How are they going to adequately work when the program is expanded? How is it going to work when mentally ill people are going to their doctor and saying, I can't do it anymore. You know, I don't see any other way out. We're supposed to be, you know, you can't watch a film on Netflix where there might be, a portrayal of suicide without there being a warning at the beginning and at the end of the film telling people, here's the 1-800 number to call if you're feeling isolated, you're feeling depressed. We're supposed to be, supporting Suicide Awareness Month, suicide awareness programs to prevent this from happening. But we're going to be opening up the doors now. We're saying, like, oh, it's okay. If you are depressed and feel sad and you want to do it, here's a number. Call a doctor, and within 24 hours, you can have an approval. People, some of the comments before was that, oh, it's a lengthy process. But from what I've been seeing, people are saying that within 24 hours, you can have the certificate that will get you access to be euthanized. That within 24 hours, you can make the decision. You can say no at the last minute, but within 24 hours, you can have the go-ahead. The last several years, we've seen countless examples of children questioning, again, I mentioned this in the last video, suffering from what's called gender dysphoria, questioning their sexuality, being fast-tracked down a path towards having body parts chopped off, receiving chemical interventions to stop puberty, puberty blockers. The cash report has really done a lot to say, to slow this down and to say, okay, we need to re-examine what the heck's going on. Thankfully, there seems to be a natural decline in the number of children who are accessing or going to doctors, expressing gender dysphoria, seeking this type of treatment, showing that perhaps, was it a phase? Has there been a bit of I don't know. But what will happen should MAiD be expanded to mature minors? And I think that we should even just stop using the term mature minors and say children. If the safeguards are not in place now, how are they going to be in place to protect children should that happen? When we've seen the last few years, the safeguards haven't been there to protect children. How many detransitioners are there who are absolutely regretting what they decided to do or what they did? It's too late to go back. It will be too late to go back once a child has applied for and been given permission to go through the MAiD process. It'll be way too late. I'm not, these are my opinions, right? So, but I don't think we're ready as a society to even have this conversation, to even have this discussion. There's a reason why we don't send 16-year-olds to the front lines. There's a reason why you don't give 16-year-olds unlimited access to alcohol. We're supposed to, we agree as a society that maybe they're not quite ready for those things. How are they going to be ready for this? And just calling them mature minors, what is that? Is there an empirical scale as to what is mature? Will it be one doctor's subjective opinion that, oh, this child's okay to do this, this child's not? The gray areas are way too wide here, that we cannot allow any conversation around MAiD to be happening for children. And in the case of the mentally ill, I watched, and I hope I can find it, I watched a video of a psychiatrist who's said there is no way to really test mental illness. There is no scale of 1 to 10. There are no diagnostic, there are no like x-rays or MRIs or CAT scans that can be given to determine someone suffering from a mental illness. The spectrum is so broad. So where does it end? You're going through a bad week and you say, I want MAiD. I can't find any way out of this. How quick will the permission be given in those cases when all that might be needed is therapy, is prolonged mental health support and coaching, counseling? Unfortunately, we are living in a time when those resources are few and far between. Absolutely few and far between, which is perhaps why more and more people are going to ChatGPT for counseling, because they don't have access to medical professionals. It's our system that's failing us. The system should not replace therapy and help with euthanasia. But that's where I see this going. If we don't, we need to have, this conversation has to be at the forefront. It has to be something which we are actively debating and discussing. These are my opinions. Let me know what you think. Do you think that expanding it to the mentally ill and to children will be the way to go? Or I think I mentioned in the last video already, in Belgium and the Netherlands, MAiD for children is ongoing. It's allowed. I just feel that in Canada, the system, the safeguards are not strong enough. They're not strong enough to protect or to stop people going through this who shouldn't be going through this, or ordinarily this is not something that they would want. The medical system has been too fast and too quick to allow children to have pieces of their bodies chopped off. How quick will it be to allow children to go through this, should it ever happen? How quick will it be to allow people that are depressed, that are suffering from severe anxiety? How quick will it be to allow those people to go through MAiD? Anyway, let me know what you think. It's a conversation that has to be had. It's a conversation that has to be had, and I don't believe it's a conversation that should be left in the hands of a few politicians. everybody needs to be involved. The medical system, supporters of this, opponents of this, rights groups. There needs to be a massive, massive discussion. Personally, I don't believe under any circumstances this is something that should be allowed to children. And while there's an inkling that anything can be done to help anybody with mental illness, it should not be offered to people suffering mental illness either. My opinion, let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks to everybody that did leave comments to the previous videos. I enjoyed reading them. I'm trying to get back to them as fast as I can. If you do have anything else you'd like to add, please drop me a line below. And if you haven't already, I would really appreciate you subscribing to the channel and giving this video a thumbs up and a share if you liked it. But let me know what you think in the comments below, guys. I think this is a critically important discussion, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. All right. Until the next video, take care of yourselves.